internet is like a huge university with millions of doors opening up a world of learning for our children. It's one of the most powerful educational tools ever invented, accessible through our mobile phones and home computers. A global system of interconnected computer networks that can transport you to another world. But it can also expose our children to harmful influences and bad behavior. As a parent, you need to know how to protect your children. Be the cop.
Citizen TV, from wherever you're watching us from. My name is Dorcas Wangira. Welcome to the program. Taking into account that Tuesday was Safer Internet Day, and with the theme being Together for a Better Internet, today our conversation will focus on that topic, safer internet and a better internet, not just for our children, but also for our young people. And with me today, I have a panel of experts and people who understand young people and children very well. And we'll begin with Mr. William Baraza. Mr. William Baraza is the CEO at the African Advanced Level Telecommunications Institute, AFRALTI. Mr. Baraza has 20 years experience in IT and telecommunications. Mr. Baraza, welcome to the program. Sitting next to Mr. Baraza is Mr. Alex Gakuru. Mr. Gakuru is the Executive Director of the Code IP Trust and has a special interest in young children, as you will see today. And next to Mr. Gakuru, we have a web ranger. Her name is Rose Tanya Wasonga. Rose is a student from the Nakuru Girls High School. And next to Miss Rose, we have Mrs. Masi Wanjao. Mrs. Masi Wanjao is the Acting Director General of the Communications Authority of Kenya. Previously, she served in the legal affairs of the CA, and she is our main panelist for today. She will be with us from now up until the end of the program. And sitting next to Mrs. Wanjao, we have Michael Mbugwa, who is a student at Christ the King Kirwara High. And Michael, welcome to the program. And we also have with us Mr. Akinwale Goodluck. Mr. Akinwale is the head of the Sub-Saharan Africa GSMA. And welcome to all of our panelists. We're pleased to have you today. And just before we begin our conversation, you have just watched a brief introduction about the internet. And today we're not here to demonize the internet. We're here to understand that the internet is perhaps one of the greatest innovations that has brought the world together and has changed how we live, how we communicate, and how we do things. And so I would love to begin with one of our youngest panelists. We have Rose. Rose, kindly tell us, you are a young person, you're a young adult.
Yes.
What does the internet mean for you?
For me, the internet, it really means a lot because the internet has actually brought very many aspects in the young generation's lives. Like personally for me, in high school, usually when you do projects in subjects, various subjects, you actually need the internet for research. And I can speak for all the high school students here. You know, sometimes the subjects may tend to get a little bit unable to comprehend. And so, like, you're able to research it well on the internet. You're able to actually gain more knowledge because of the internet. You're able to communicate with other people from other sides of the world who are just like peers, just like you are. And to me, the internet is like a major way of communicating, changing very many people's lives, making an impact. Yeah.
All right, and that's very interesting. And that brings me again back to one of our young panelists, Michael. Tell us, in just one word, why do you love the internet?
Internet is so awesome. It's so cool. One, I like internet. It's about entertainment.
All right, you said awesome, cool, entertainment, 3 words.
Yeah.
And in this era we live on, we are always on the internet. And you're young adults, I don't want to call you children per se. a lot of you spend a lot of time on the internet. And even as you spend that time on the internet, I do believe that we have sometimes you feel, are you always safe? Do you always feel safe every time you use the internet, Michael?
First, the interaction with the parents, they don't like it, but to me, it's something cool. So it's like I feel safe because it's a great reservoir of information and also research.
All right. And this is, at this point, I'd like to pose a question to the DG. We are here to talk about online protection. And the Communications Authority is the agency with the mandate to ensure that children are also protected as part of your larger mandate to regulate the communication sector. Why is it important that children are protected on the internet?
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. The internet, as you said earlier, has really come to take over our lives. It's really a medium through which we are able to entertain ourselves, to do business, and to learn. And because of that, and the benefits that it brings, it also carries other unintended consequences. And some of these have come through, even for our Kenyan children, with incidences of cyberbullying, for example, cyber stalking, and others. So these are our vulnerable populations. They are the future. They are our future. And because of this, we want to create a mechanism or an ecosystem through which the young and all alike are able to appropriate the benefits that come with the internet and be able to shield themselves as much as possible from the dangers that the same medium is capable of leading us to.
All right, that's very poignant. And Mr. Gakuru, you're very passionate about young people, and I see that you work very well with the Kenya Scouts.
True.
So tell us, just with what Mrs. Wajao has mentioned, she's talked about dangers. What are some of the dangers that face children or young adults? I have to keep repeating that.
Yes. First of all, like what Mike and the other people have said, and even the DG, the internet is awesome. It's a great new infrastructure for communication. It's a wonderful resource. It's like the road infrastructure, which we use to either take us to church or to our graves and to other lot of accidents. So the internet is great. But just like we have rules on the roads, just like we have, you cannot take a child to a foreign land and leave the child there. This space called cyberspace, where the children also go, they should also need to be guided and be given rules and introduced to the rules there. And just like we raise children in our offline world, we need to raise children online. So the threats are not any different, if you like, from what we do in parenting. It's just that there has been a disconnect between parenting in the offline world than it has been in the digital space. So I would say the same threats that face a child, the way a child can be abused, insulted, bullied, stalked, all bad things that can happen, they can also happen on cyberspace. So it's a call for all of us to actually ensure the wholesomeness of raising a child well in cyberspace is done in an equal manner as is done in the real world.
Right, and you have used very interesting terms. You've used cyberspace. You've used bullying. You've used another word. You've mentioned offline raising. Someone said that our children are being raised online. All right, it's a very interesting statement. But let's talk a little bit about that language that you use, and this is where I bring in Mr. William Baraza. How do we? I'd like to just get from you like 5 main dangers and threats, and also how you define them. For example, just adding on to what he has said, cyberbullying. How just list some of those challenges.
Okay, thanks so much, Dorcas, and the other panelists for their comments. So I think my colleague has mentioned, Alex has mentioned about cyberbullying, which is probably one of the commonest dangers on the internet. But we also see a lot of things happen on the internet about things to do with sex issues, where you have young people or even old people being influenced through the internet by being lured into sex trafficking, which is a big issue in the society right now. We've seen financial fraud, which comes also on the internet, which is a very big problem, where money is being lost. We've seen last year almost about 10 billion Kenya shillings was actually lost in the financial sector because of
cyber insecurity to do with fraud, internet fraud. We have things to do with hacking of government systems, where there's information theft of identity of individuals, and therefore this information is used in the wrong way. The last item is actually cyber terrorism. You've seen that, and is a very big danger which is actually lacks with us. We are a country that suffers a lot of terrorism, and some of that, the evidence that came in the recent attacks is that the cyber information was used to actually influence how those people accessed the information to go to attack to the property that was attacked here in Nairobi and parts of the northern Kenya. So there's a lot of danger on that. But having said that, the positives of the advantage of the internet are more than, like Tanya has mentioned, are more than the negatives. And I think what we need to be focusing on is how to secure the internet to make it more responsive, to be useful, to be more useful, and encourage people to responsibly use the internet, so that they can use it for what, like Tanya said, communication, knowledge sharing, being able to use it for e-commerce, and that's where we are all targeting to use, so that you make it safer for everyone.
All right, and thank you. Just to reiterate on what Michael. It could either be you or your friends. You could either speak for yourself or your friends. Have you ever been cyberbullied?
No.
You have never been bullied online?
Yeah.
Has anyone ever solicited or gotten in touch with you for something?
I was taking a photo, and then it was kind of embarrassing to me, but it was kind of funny. But later on, I come to discover it's just an entertainment. Even if I didn't like, I just left it like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And Tanya, one last question to you. Do you know what catfishing is?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Kindly tell me.
There's actually this program in MTV. It's called Catfished. There are very many people who actually meet people online. They want to engage in online dating. So there are these personas who actually take other people's profiles so that they can impress the person that they'd like to get influenced with. And when that person becomes interested, eventually, they will ask if you want to meet. They'll be like, you want to meet here sometime? And the person will give excuses like, oh, I can't, I have this, I have work. And in this program, they hire investigators who actually do more investigation on that person. And in the end, it turns out so different. You can actually find that you want to talk to a guy, but the real person is actually a lady. So it's like you've been dating a lady online, and that's just, it's not
awkward,
right.
yeah?
It's really awkward. You don't
Really
even know what to say. You don't even know how to act.
Okay, and so last year we have in the telecommunication industry, we had a partnership between the GSMA and the CA, I believe, and you signed a COP guideline. So Mr. Wale, what exactly is this COP guideline? What does it mean, and why is this important?
Thank you very much, Dorcas. First of all, let me say a big thank you to the CA for having me this morning, and good morning, Kenya. The mobile industry provides the connectivity to the internet, and rather than take a backseat, the mobile industry also understands that it must demonstrate responsibility and it must work with all partners. We have found the industry in Kenya particularly and the CA and the ministry have come together, and they came together in 2018 to take on this responsibility, to deal with it heads on, to understand that the internet brings a lot of benefit and advantages, but also we must take care of our vulnerable subsets. Today, we find that the internet, there's a lot of focus on child online protection. There's a lot of focus on pornography, but there's more danger than those things online. There's danger in terms of identity of our children and how they protect their identity, how they go about their business. Our young adults are doing a lot of business, legitimate business online, and they are exposed, their bank accounts are exposed, their personal details are exposed, and we must just continue as an industry to educate, to empower, and to ensure that we put in place things to help correct mistakes that adults and the digital natives, which is what I like to call people like Michael and Tanya.
And so tell us, or maybe before I get back to you, I would like to ask Mrs. Wanjao, tell us about the COP and what exactly is that about?
Okay. The COP is a flagship initiative of the Communications Authority of Kenya. It is tagged Be the COP, Child Online Protection. And you can see the banner right here about making the online experience safer for children. This was done in recognition of the fact that a lot of the policy initiatives that have been implemented in Kenya have led to dramatic results, and the statistics are there to show. Our internet connectivity, broadband, is very high. The penetration of gadgets is at about 106% in this country, with about 56 million pieces of gadgets, because people are now having multiple devices. What would this mean for our children, who are the majority of the population in Kenya? So because of this recognition, we realize that even as you push for penetration and connectivity, it calls for a responsible reaction to reach out to the vulnerable populations, to the parents and the guardians, so that as they continue to appropriate the internet space, they do it safely, they understand the do's and the don'ts, and this promotes a sense of awareness and a good sense of cyber hygiene, that as we get onto that online space, that we are protected, we are safe, we preserve dignity, and yet are able to leverage on the benefits that the platform has to offer.
That's very poignant as well, and we can see the internet COP, Be the COP, just right behind you.
Right, right.
And I'd like to go back to Mr. Gakuru Alex. The acting DG talked about cyber hygiene. She said, be the COP. When it comes to young people, do young people love to be coped around? Do you want your parents to know what are you doing, what's on your phone?
Absolutely not. Even if your parents join your WhatsApp as a friend, you run away from there, or you create a nice account where you just show you're a nice girl, a nice boy, good church going, but then you have the real one where you actually post the real things, the real you. And if they join a WhatsApp group or any other social media, you leave. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is that's the general, even as when we were young, when our parents came into our little spaces, we invented words. So there's nothing new, going back to what I was saying. So what we need to address collectively is how do we engage with these children so that they also become part of the conversation. We are raising them in an environment where we feel we are their friends. We then ensure that we make them have peer-to-peer. They become brothers and sisters, keeper of each other. So you have what we call good ambassadors. They go and change others. So rather than adopting a COP, and I appreciate there are different modes of engaging these, we adopted what we call youth online safety. We branded ours as youth online safety so that the high schoolers and the older ones feel they are actually being addressed as youth, not as children. But of course, you see even in the audience, we have a lot of children, we have to address them. And so that then you engage with them and speak their language, both offline and online, and that way you stand higher chances of influencing their behavioral change. So nobody wants, even you, even all of us, if our moms come into our lives, even in our homes, we still feel uncomfortable at our age. So the same thing, even online, there's nothing special. It's just that we need to address that as a societal issue and ensure that our entry point is where we have ambassadors who are now the evangelists within their youth. So we adopted, under this Web Rangers flagship program of Google on online safety, where we have ambassadors who become now the ones who go and change their peers from the teenagers before they're actually adults.
All right, and just back to you, Mrs. Wanjao, and the COP again. What are just some of 2 or 3 guidelines? Because not that it's contrary to what Alex is saying, but because parents at the end of the day are responsible for their children and young adults. So what would if you were to speak to a parent now, what 3 guidelines in the do's and the don'ts would you reiterate?
Okay. One of the things that has come out through research is that parents buy these devices for their children for educational purposes. But you know what the children use them for? Entertainment. So hence the new concept of edutainment. It's education and entertainment. So if a parent has bought a device, a computer for example, or avails an iPad to the child, they need to be able to monitor what is the child doing with it. They can put in safeguards which filter, or just go through the history to see what it is being used for. The second thing would be the place where this computer, for example, is kept. Many homes will keep these computers in the library in a safe, secluded, quiet place where even if you're passing, you cannot see the screen. Actually, the ideal place would be to put that computer in a place where it is facing others so that they can be able to take a peek and see what is going on. Sometimes children get hooked on online. They spend too much time on it, and it is a caution for parents and guardians to watch out for unusual behavior with a child. If you notice that a child prefers to socialize online rather than person to person, or is so withdrawn and spends too much time on these devices, that is a cause for concern to find out what are they doing. Is the time that they're spending online appropriate so that they can have a conversation on how to do it? Of course, lastly, is when they go online, what kind of information to share and what not to share. Personal information, your name, your age, where you live, what time my parents are in, when they're out, what I do, is sensitive information. Information that leads to identification of an individual should not be shared. A request to meet a child in the real-time space should not be honored. And in fact, children should be encouraged to report these kind of incidences to a caring adult so that they can navigate out of that to prevent an online experience from translating into the real-time space and causing much harm.
All right, and that's very, very important even for our parents. And just before I get back to you, Alex, I'd like to come back to you again, Mr. Wale, because you have a partnership and you understand phones and mobile penetration. The year is 2020. We're going to have more phones. You're going to have more children on phones. You have babies being raised on Baby Shark on YouTube. So what's one thing you would say based on your partnership on the COP guidelines and from your understanding of the mobile penetration? What one thing would you tell to parents and even the young people themselves who use these devices, how to help them stay safe?
If I look at one thing, I think one thing that is really clear and we see all over the world is that children and young people follow and copy what they see the adults and grown-ups do. If you go online today or you read the newspapers, you will find that people who are role models are the ones who are breaking the rules that we're telling the young people and the children. We find that the children then model this. So when you tell children, don't post your naked photos online, and then they open the newspapers and see that a popular television star, movie star has done the same, we then have to be a bit more factual with what we tell the children. I think we need to be aligned with what's going on in the world. The children, the digital natives, are a lot more smarter than people like me. They understand privacy, they understand how to set up their devices, but they're also very vulnerable. So all in all, I think the focus must be on education and we must set the right examples.
Very powerful, and I think example is king. Before I get to you, Alex, I noticed you had a burning point. Mr. Baraza, I'd love to roll the ball into your court. You've talked a lot on the risks on lines, and when we have minors who are not like, people say children are not small adults. Yeah. What are some of the onset for them to know the risks online? How can a young child, what can a young child or young adult be on the lookout for when they're online?
Thank you so much, Dorcas. I think as Alex mentioned, alluded to earlier, so when you're talking about online, online is probably, to be analogous a bit, is internet, or what called the information superhighway, which in another way could be like our superhighways, what we have there. And the superhighways are only safe are only safe as much as we, the users, are safe on that superhighway. Same thing happens on the information superhighway. So that's something that you need to take care of as a user. And users are now have come to a younger age. Even toddlers are now users of the information superhighway. So some of the things that they need to take care of is protect their devices, because devices have become now, they are pervasive now. So they are all over. We get smartphones. Young people have access to smartphones. The smartphones need to be protected. And that's where I think DG has also alluded to. In terms of when they do the type approvals, they must get the devices that also conform to certain standards, that the users are also safe. So if you can imagine if, for example, the operators gave, this and Ole will also attest to it, if operators gave all of us SIM cards without pins, what will happen? That means our information will be exposed. You can imagine that if the vendors supplied phones that do not have ability to put passwords in them. Okay, so we are all exposed. So those simple things are the ones that build up into the protection. And it starts with the user. So the user must know whether the device is safe or not. And then from there they start protecting, going upwards towards now the protection of the network and the protection of the cloud the way it is. So as a Fralti, what we do is we try and train from the basic level up to the expert level. So we have the levels of associate, which is now the entry level of engineers, the professional level up to the expert level, where now you can secure the whole infrastructure. And those are the things that need to be taken into consideration so that you can protect the data and information that is available on the information superhighway which we have on our devices.
All right, and thank you, Mr. Baraz. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for our panel. And before we move to our next panel, I'd like to remind you that our hashtag is Safer Internet Day 2020. Keep tweeting, keep writing on Facebook, on any other social media platform that you are on. And if you are watching us on Citizen TV, the line is 22422. Write to ask questions, which even our panelists will be able to engage with them much later. Thank you and keep watching. Remember, the hashtag is Safer Internet Day 2020. Thank you so much, our panelists, and for your time and even for your expert information. Thank you very much. right, and welcome back to our conversation on Safer Internet Day 2020. Remember, that is our hashtag. We just had a conversation and we looked at the problem and even some of the solutions. And for this particular panel, we will still continue looking at the solutions and the interventions to ensure that we have a better future for our internet and we have a safer internet for our children and our young adults. And I would like to introduce my panel. We have a familiar face. Mrs. Wanjawi is still with us. But we have Mr. Edward Mose. Mr. Edward Mose is the program manager of the online safety project implemented by Terre des Hommes and the African Institute for Children's Studies and Childline Kenya. Welcome to the program. And we also have with us Ruth Grayson. Ruth Grayson is the CEO of the Kenya Scouts Association. You can see that she needs no introduction. And then we also have Miss Rebecca Gitau from the GVRC. That's the Gender Violence and Recovery Center. And we have with us a young adult, Lydia Kimemia, from the Kambui Girls High School in Kiambu. And we also have with us Evelyn Minette, who is an IT specialist who trains children on online safety and a parent herself. So she will also be sharing with us her experiences. And before we begin our conversation, I'd just like to read some of the feedback we're getting on Twitter. We have Juma G who says, the future generation is already settled for the Safer Internet Day 2020 happening at the CA headquarters. How can we make the internet safe for our children? And we also have Innovative Learning Facilitator who tweets and says, Safer Internet Day 2020, that's the hashtag, be safe online. It's not about technology, it's about technology. No with a W. That's very insightful. And lastly, we have Koi Kinyanjui who tweets and says, with over 56 million connected in Kenya, we need to ensure that we remain responsible in how we bring on board the next generation of users. And this next generation of users has parents. And that's where we have Eve Minette come in at first. So as a parent, you have a child and you also teach children on how to engage online. So from your perspective, how can they be safe? How can they be empowered to have technology?
I'm actually a family IT consultant. I have 2 children of my own, but the many children that I train, for me, it's about engaging them. We have to get to the space where we understand why they're so fascinated in so many other things that we can't keep up with. And I find they are the best people to tell us what is trending, the apps that are new, because honestly, with what is going on in our lives, we really can't keep up with what is out there. So engaging them in the sense that we are inculcating values, that they understand who they are from a very young age. And I walk around with props because I'm a teacher now. And I tell them actually to just choose between, the 2 props. There's a boy and a girl. And once they start choosing and getting to understand this is the person I am outside what my parents say I am, outside what society says I am, they get to understand who they can mirror online, because it's about who they are offline and what they can mirror online. And additionally, also having parents understand that if you're not affirming your children right at home, if you're not making them feel important, they go online and start looking for that affirmation. And you do know that if we are not inculcating values at home, Google does not, it does not uphold your values. The people online might not be upholding your values. So we have to start from home, creating a conducive environment with each and every person who has access to your child, from their nanny, from when they go to the salon. Are they just being given phones by anybody to pacify them so that they can just go through that hour of hair? From your nuclear family to extended family, go to the school and find out, everybody who has access to my child, how am I engaging them? Am I letting them know that these are my expectations when my children are around you? So yes.
Thank you. And that will lead me to ask Mr. Mose, you have an online safety project. And what are some of the most pressing cases you've had in the year 2019, moving on to 2020, dealing with young adults? And also, you could also answer, how can some of these cases be reported? To who can they be reported as an intervention?
Thank you for that. And I need to mention that we as a consortium implementing this project across the 4 counties, Nairobi, Kisumu, Mombasa, and Nakuru. First, before we started to implement this project, we did a baseline study just to understand what is the extent of severity of this problem. And basically, we got very shocking figures that prompted us to do the intervention. And what we are getting from the ground is that the children will always be in the online space. And our perspective of our approach to this is that we're not going to tell the children never touch the phone, but we're going to tell them, we're telling them you can, the internet's good, it has got opportunities and also there are risks, so sort of making them know that their risk behaviors in the online space would get them to very dangerous grounds. And therefore, what we get a lot is that the children are getting into these things, and they're also saying that we need to be guided on this.
Right. Yeah. And Mrs. Wanjao, where can some of this online abuses be reported?
Certainly the abuses are on the increase, and this has led to a lot of concern. One of the regulatory responses that we have developed and established is the Kenya Computer Incidents Report Center. This is a mechanism within the Communications Authority of Kenya geared towards providing a 24-hour system, early warning system. It picks up on incidences of cyber threat. It also receives complaints such as abuse to children, and this can come from the children, from the parents, from the guardians, anyone who perceives that there is something not right that is happening in the cyberspace, with a view to identifying what it is, warning the affected parties, and trying to mitigate or eliminate it completely. But as the previous speaker has just said, today we are dealing with one thing, tomorrow is another thing. So this is a continuing process where we encourage continuous awareness of the threats online, continuous building of capacity, so that the user is able to identify by recognizing what this could mean and to take care of them. So the Kenya CERT, it's called the KE-CERT, the Computer Incidents Response Team, is one of the mechanisms that we do have to detect and prevent online offenses.
And what about just a regular parent? Maybe, let's say a parent sees their child has been put on somebody else's Instagram profile. Like she says, you go to the salon, someone does your child's hairdo, you see the next thing your child is on Instagram. If I want to report that, what about the police? What about the DCI? What is that open?
The police service remain our partners in this exercise, and indeed they are a port of call. We do have a cooperation with them to be able to detect, investigate, and sometimes even prosecute these kind of offenses. So in terms of the tiering of reporting, if it's a child, the first port of call will be a responsible, caring adult, and let them know what has happened, what it made them feel, and hope that this adult is aware enough to know where to escalate this. It could be to the authorities of an institution, could be to the police, it could be to the Communications Authority of Kenya, so that that issue is dealt with conclusively. Of course, it helps that even as the child or the user is getting into the system, that they are aware of the cautions to take. Otherwise, then they will be overwhelmed with a lot of unintended consequences.
All right, and that brings me to you, Caroline. You're the youngest member of this panel. Have you ever felt unsafe online?
No, I've always been safe.
Really? You've never been trolled? No one has ever cyberbullied you?
No one, I've never.
Wow. What are some of the tips that you have for staying safe?
Okay, as for me, when I just use the term of blocking, any moment and I just see you don't add any value to me, or you just sound to be a negative person just by the looks and how you communicate to one by through messages and all that. I just see when I continue with this person talking to me like this, it will end this way. So immediately I just block. Or I use my parents. I just ask them, this person is texting me this, and this, and this. And they're like, block him or her. schools, they are not nice people.
All right. That's interesting. How old are you again?
18.
Ooh, okay. All right. And Ruth Grayson, you work a lot with young adults, with the Scouts and their organized group. How do you encourage them to be, or how do you help them, empower them to be safe online? And do they share the same skill sets with other young people?
First of all, in the Scouting fraternity, the way we work, we have leaders who are trained on the skills, and thanks to partners like Code IP, who come on board now to give us the expertise and train us on how to now deliver these lessons to the young children, the young adults. And first of all, in Scouting, we have different groups based on their age groups. So we have the young adults who are the Rover Scouts. We have also young adults who are the Mwamba Scouts. As you can see, the lovely young lady has a purple scarf. These scarves symbolize the sections they fall under. Then we have now the very impulsive teenage ones who are now in the green scarves. Those are the Chipukizis. And then we have the youngest lot who are the Sunguras. So the information has to be tailored for each of these groups. You can't just lump them into one training, because then you will lose them. You'll have the older ones feeling left out. You'll have the younger ones lost with all the information.
All right, and before I come to you, Rebecca, just on what she has said, you've mentioned tiers. You know, you'll have the child who will just watch maybe Baby Shark. Then you have the 13-year-old who wants to find out what's trending. You have the 18-year-old who wants to find out what is different. And which is the most vulnerable demography? Is it the innocent ones who just engage? Or is it that demography which is looking for something particular? Who are the most vulnerable even to some of the abuses that we have online?
That's a very tricky question, because there's so many things that come into play here. We have also a group of people who we are not mentioning at the moment, the people with disabilities. They are also vulnerable. At every age group comes with its own challenges. As a parent, each child is vulnerable based on the way they are growing. The very young ones are very easy to lure. The ones who are teenagers are also very impulsive. They want to try everything, not thinking about the consequences that come with the action. So I'm going to the mall, for instance. I'm wearing a purple dress, and they meet someone who they don't know online. And they tell them, okay, let's meet at the underground parking, for instance. So these are the things that we start teaching them and telling them, you need to think about that before you just go ahead and post information about yourself. Then you have the Mwambas, who now, these are young adults who, at their age, they're in their adolescence. They now want to date, they're attracted to, to the different sexes. They want to share a little bit more information about themselves. These ones are probably taking photographs of themselves. And when they do it, they believe that it's just my boyfriend who knows. It's just my girlfriend who knows, you know? So each group has its challenges. The older ones also, they feel they're in charge, they can take care of themselves, but they need guidance. Yes.
Fair enough. And Rebecca, you have been the silent one on the panel, nodding quietly. You handle cases of violence and recovery. Tell us, moving into 2020, how has 2019 been? Have there been cases where that have actually stemmed from online abuse, even to physical abuse based from the online interaction?
Thank you so much, Dorcas. And for sure, 2019 and even other years that have been there, we have received, or we've been receiving, cases of children who have been raped out of cyberbullying, out of internet. And out of that, after treating them, we realize we are treating so many kids. And when you ask them, like my panelist is saying, when you ask them, they were told by someone we meet, and they even describe themselves, only to realize they get there, they're dragged, and then they are raped. Some of them are even found by the police, and then they are brought to our center. And so what we did as an organization is now we're trying to use the platforms that we have, especially because we work with schools. We have clubs, different clubs in school, especially the Kings and Queens Club. And we use that platform to educate children and to tell them the do's and the don'ts, because we can't criminalize internet. However, we also tell parents, we educate parents that you have to educate your own children. Previously, we have seen parents criminalizing internet. So it is time now we educate parents to educate their children. Because technology, like all my panelists are saying, technology is here with us. Phones are here with us. Internet is here with us. And so as parents, because that is where children learn, parents need to teach their children that when you use these are the consequences. And again, out there, for children who feel they have been addicted, again, there is help. They need to check out who are the counselors available. Like for us as a GVLC, we support them. We have support group for them where we support them because of the psychological effect that comes with the internet. Other than the good things that comes with the internet, we have seen a lot of psychological impact that now overshadows what was good. And so now we are encouraging the children to look for help. Because once there is psychological impact, it brings other things. It brings other addictions. Because again, it's like a bondage. They want to come out. And when they realize they're not able to come out, they find themselves in other issues. So I can encourage the children who are watching us here, if they find they are addicted to internet, they need to look for help as quick as possible. But internet is good.
And that's the message of the day. The internet is here with us. It's here to stay. No one is demonizing it, but we need to stay safe. Before I ask Eve a question, there is feedback from Saving Mother Nature, and she says, children rarely feel unsafe online, so the threat is real. The saying what you don't know can hurt you is incorrect in this case. Creating awareness is important, but giving them something else to do online is better. And I think just underscores what you said, that those who feel that they're safe may not know that there are dangers lurking within. And lastly, one thing I'd like to engage on as we come to a conclusion, we have seen a very interesting trend in Kenya. We have parents posting a lot of their children online. You know, I got a child, I post them on Facebook, their nappy, their first walk. People even ask, are we raising your children with our data bundles, you know? So it's the question of consent. Do children have a right to be asked whether their parents should post them? Will this be detrimental when the child grows up and is like, Mom, why did you create an Instagram account for me? So does consent count for young children and young adults and children?
Yes, it certainly does. And at this point, we need to also just engage parents, guardians, and educators to understanding the consequences of the digital footprints they create. And the reason why we need to ask children, just out of courtesy, because we call them minors because they're under 18, so we assume they don't have the right. But when you're posting something about your child, which I think the first panelist said someone had posted a photo and then it looked funny, but it made them feel bad. Just imagine when your child is growing up and seeing photos about themselves, because the internet never forgets. They will get to a point where they're questioning why a certain footprint was posted about me. It is important for parents to also understand that it is not your footprint that you're creating for them a footprint. And you can imagine for them, if right now as an employer, personally, I really hardly read CVs, I will just go and do a digital scan on my employers, imagine what they will be going through. So about what we post on, about our children, child advertisement, it's something that we really, really need to critically think about and actually have an end in mind, in the sense that I'm going to post this, is it going to give me a temporary niceness, the dopamine, or how is it going to engage the future? Because the children actually, it is their footprint, so whether or not you like it, you have to ask them if they want to be online, yes.
What about a 2-month-old baby? You know, how do you know? They say, Dada, consent given.
You know, It's funny how you say that, because even when you're talking about screen time, a child who is under 2 years should have at least 30 minutes of supervised screen time. So at what point is the child enjoying that screen time, or are you the one who is posting them? Anyway, it's a discussion about content. And I think it is important for us to safeguard them as much as we can before we put them out there for the world to see. You have seen many celebrities right now who have children, and they are putting, those smiley faces on their faces because they know the kind of world that is out there for their children. And you don't want to be the person who is making your child be bullied when they don't have a say in a discussion matter online. Yeah.
All right. And Mr. Edward Mose, there was a conversation happening now with the DCI and talking about if children commit offenses and that is part of their criminal record. She uses a very strong term, digital footprint. Do you believe if a child, let's say a minor, commits an offense, should that count until when they're adults? And what should happen if a child feels that they are violated? If a child says, my mom posted this, how can they maybe have the photo taken down? What rights does a child have when it comes to their safety?
And as the DG's communication authority said, we have got various platforms that they can report to. There is KSAT that monitors all those kind of things. And there's also 116. This is Childline Kenya, call center, where they can call and report such a things. And then if they are not bold enough to follow them up, the Childline Kenya can do it. But I also need to mention, given having said that, we also focus a lot in protecting the children, but there are other actors that are involved in, that should be involved to make the fight more successful. I know there is a case study that we'll be sharing later on today, but it only highlights the severity of what can happen to online safety. This is a parent 2-3 weeks ago who lost a daughter because she was cyberbullied online, and then she went to commit suicide, a high school daughter. So that highlights, when I was listening to him being interviewed in one of the radio stations, he said that 3 things that were missing in our home states. We have the phones that is unsupervised. We've got the communication that is not being done by the parents. We also have the programs that are going on, and we don't know what's going on with the children. So in the course, all that are happening, our daughter was lost 2 weeks ago. I know later on he'll be sharing more about it, but I want to say that there are clear channels of reporting these things, and if there is an appropriate content, it can be pulled down.
All right. And thank you. I want to come back to you because you are the major stakeholder in this our conversation. And do you know what a digital device contract is?
A digital device contract, I think it's kind of a device that, it kind of guides you on how to be online, on how to go things online. So those digital devices, you have the laptops, the phones, and everything. So when you are engaging in creating accounts and all that, so that you can now have the apps like the Instagram and the WhatsApp. So I think they guide you on ways forward, on how to choose your password, on how to create the account and everything, and on the things to check out before you log in on anything.
Right, so is she right, is she wrong?
Part of it, yes. This is a contract that we have when we're engaging parents, so that you're not feeling like you're that helicopter mother who is saying no, because even if your children are not accessing devices at home, outside there they certainly will. So it is a point where we educate parents on the age limits on when children can get into social media. Google has a family link, so if your child is under 13, a parent can actually create an account for them, and when they get to the point of 13, they can give them the password. But of course, you have to have had several conversations towards that. So this contract is basically, if you're giving a child a phone, access to any digital technology, ask them, discuss where you're going to use it, how you're going to use it, when, and for how long. Then discuss things like tech-free zones, so when we are having meals, no computers, when you're in the toilet, those kind of things. then it's kind of a discussion. When you put it down, they sign. So that when you find your child has violated and you're taking that privilege away, they don't rebel because they know that they consented to it.
All right, and thank you. And it is at that point, I would love for us to end our conversation. When it's just gotten very interesting, we've had words like web nanny, helicopter mommy. You know, is this a mom who roves around you saying, what are you watching? But I think I just want to give you a parting shot, Mrs. Wanjao, with the regulator, 2020. What do you envision for this year for safety, online safety, not just for children and young adults, but also for all of us? What does the CA envision for this country for this year?
Our vision about the cyberspace is to use it for productivity and to preserve our dignity. How will this be done? This will be done with a lot of awareness creation. I like the word that was mentioned here, technology. That we would know how to use technology, that we would know how to harness that technology, and that we would know how to protect ourselves. I'd like to speak a little bit onto the issue of the young children, the babies that you spoke about, because this is a very prevalent issue. When a parent posts images of their children online, it's out of moments of joy and pride, and we recognize that and we celebrate that. But the parent or the guardian is under a legal obligation to act in the best interests of the child. When the image appears, that would be one that would be preserved in the digital footprint forever, or has identifiers like blazers with labels and everything. What this does is expose the child to the world, to molesters, to all manner of incidents that this child, anybody would want to shield them from it. So I would want to urge, as part of the technology, that as you deal especially with children, minors, that it's about them, not you. And when you turn it around, then a lot of these images, we will not find them on social media.
All right, and thank you. You can take that to the bank because Mrs. Wanjao is a legal advisor. All right, thank you so much. This has been a very engaging conversation. Keep the conversation going on Safer Internet Day 2020. And at this point, I'd love to introduce Ms. Rachel Alwala from the Communications Authority to continue with the second part of this program. My name has been Dorcas Wangira. Enjoy the rest of your day.